The deep silence of space was suddenly broken by a faint, crackling signal that blinked onto the Deathworlder fleet's long-range scanners, sending a ripple of tension through the command bridge. Captain Mara Voss sat rigid in her seat, her eyes narrowing as the strange message repeated again, a clear but desperate SOS coming from a star system marked as lost decades ago. No one had expected any survivors there, especially not humans. The coordinates pointed to an uncharted planet, known only in old archives as a death trap, a place where previous colonies vanished without a trace. Yet, here was a call for help, raw and urgent, like a last breath from someone clinging to life. Mara's mind raced with questions. Was it a trap? A warning? Or the faint hope that humanity still lived in the forgotten corners of the galaxy? Orders were quick and sharp: alter course immediately. The fleet, a group of the toughest, most battle-hardened human soldiers known as the Deathworlders, shifted their trajectory, engines humming louder as they surged toward the unknown. The closer they got, the stranger things became. Sensors flickered and warped, unable to fully scan the planet's surface. Unusual energy readings pulsed beneath the clouds, and faint echoes of ancient signals hinted at a technology far beyond their understanding. The atmosphere of the place seemed almost alive, watching them. Mara's crew worked feverishly to decode more of the SOS, catching glimpses of words mixed with panic and fear. Something had gone terribly wrong here, something the records never told them about. The silence aboard the flagship was thick with tension. No one spoke except for the crackle of transmissions and the distant hum of the fleet's engines. As they neared the planet's orbit, a cold shadow seemed to stretch over the ship, and even the seasoned veterans felt the weight of uncertainty pressing down. Mara's voice cut through the stillness, steady but firm: prepare for descent. We don't know what's waiting for us, but we do know one thing: no one else will answer that call if we don't. The drop pods were readied, weapons checked, and minds steeled for whatever horrors lay ahead. The SOS was no longer just a signal. It was a challenge thrown at humanity itself, daring the Deathworlders to uncover the truth or be swallowed by the mystery that had claimed those before them. The fleet's scanners briefly picked up what looked like ruins scattered across the planet's surface, remnants of a colony that once hoped to thrive but had long since fallen silent. What Mara didn't yet realize was that the SOS was more than a plea for help. It was the first move in a deadly game, one that would push the Deathworlders to their limits and change the course of human history forever. The Deathworlder fleet settled into orbit around the strange planet, a world that looked harsh and unforgiving even from space. The thick clouds swirled like a storm trapped in time, casting dark shadows over jagged mountains and deep forests that stretched endlessly across the surface. From the bridge of the flagship, Captain Mara Voss stared at the planet below, her jaw tight with determination. The SOS signal had led them here, and now it was time to find out what had happened to the lost colony and why they were calling for help after all these years. As the fleet's scanners tried again to penetrate the dense atmosphere, their sensors picked up something: odd structures. Old buildings, or what was left of them, scattered across the planet's surface. Some were half buried in dirt and overgrown with strange plants, while others looked freshly damaged, as if a violent storm or battle had ravaged the area recently. The signs of life were faint but undeniable. The colony had once been here. But what had caused its downfall? Mara's orders were clear: deploy the ground teams and gather whatever information they could. The drop pods hissed and opened their doors, releasing squads of heavily armed soldiers who descended toward the planet's surface. The airlock opened, and Mara's own team stepped out into a world that immediately felt hostile. The sky was heavy with thick gray clouds that dimmed the sun's light, making the landscape feel cold and unwelcoming. The ground beneath their boots was rough and uneven, covered with rocks and thorny vegetation that scraped at their armor. As they moved deeper into the remains of the colony, an eerie silence surrounded them. No birds sang, no insects buzzed. Only the faint rustling of wind through broken structures whispered in the air. The team spread out, scanning with their sensors for signs of life or danger. Suddenly, Mara stopped. Ahead lay a wide clearing, and in the center was a strange monument carved from black stone, covered in symbols no one recognized. The air around it seemed to hum softly, sending a chill down her spine. She motioned for the team to be cautious. As they moved closer, they found strange markings etched into the stone warnings, maybe, or a message from those who had come before. Then a sudden noise shattered the quiet, a sharp crack from the trees behind them. The squad turned instantly, weapons raised, eyes searching through the thick underbrush. Out of the shadows came creatures unlike any they had seen before, tall, thin, with glowing eyes and skin that shimmered like scales. They moved quickly, almost too fast to follow, surrounding the humans with an eerie silence that made the hairs on the back of Mara's neck stand up. The creatures didn't speak but communicated with sharp clicks and low growls, their bodies tense and ready to strike. Mara's heart pounded. This was no ordinary wildlife. These beings were intelligent, dangerous, and they knew the humans were intruders. The first shots rang out as the Deathworlders fought to keep the creatures at bay. Blaster bolts lit up the clearing, but the aliens' movements were fluid and unpredictable, slipping between rocks and trees as if the forest itself helped them. Despite their superior weapons and training, the humans found themselves pushed back, the environment turning against them with every step. The creatures knew the terrain far better and used it to their advantage, driving the squad into a tight circle near the monument. Mara's mind raced for a plan. Retreat was not an option. They had to find out what these beings were and why they attacked. Then, amid the chaos, another message crackled through Mara's comlink. It was from the fleet's sensors. Something was moving beneath the surface, an energy signature growing stronger by the minute. The ancient technology on the planet was waking up, and whatever lay beneath was not pleased with the visitors. The creatures' attacks intensified, their speed and ferocity increasing as if fueled by the power rising from below. Mara realized that the SOS was not just a call for help, it was a warning. Something terrible had been unleashed, and now it threatened everyone. With a sharp order, Mara's team formed a defensive perimeter around the monument, buying time for reinforcements to arrive. They fought with everything they had, human grit and sheer willpower keeping them alive against the relentless onslaught. The forest around them seemed alive, shadows twisting and shifting as if watching the battle. The team began to uncover more clues, old datapads hidden in the ruins, recordings from the lost colonists describing strange tremors, voices in the dark, and creatures that came from the deep. The planet itself was a death world, more dangerous than any human had ever faced, but also a place of mystery and power. As night fell, the creatures retreated into the darkness, leaving the Deathworlders to tend their wounded and prepare for the next attack. Mara stood at the edge of the clearing, looking out into the shadowy forest, knowing this was just the beginning. The SOS had brought them here, but the real fight for survival, for truth, was only starting. Somewhere beneath the planet's surface, something ancient and deadly was stirring, and the Deathworlders were the only ones standing between it and the galaxy. The night stretched long and dark over the hostile planet as the Deathworlder fleet held its position, but rest was scarce. Captain Mara Voss sat quietly in the command tent, her eyes fixed on the data streaming in from scouts scattered around the ruined colony. Every report added another layer of mystery and danger. The strange creatures that had attacked earlier were no simple animals. They moved with purpose and intelligence, coordinating their strikes like a well-trained army. Mara's soldiers described how the beings seemed to disappear into the shadows, only to reappear moments later in a different spot, always pressing the attack, but never fully committing to a direct confrontation. The atmosphere was thick with tension, and the forest itself seemed to watch them, its silence broken only by the distant cries of unseen predators. The datapads recovered from the ruins told a grim story. The colonists had discovered something underground, something that should have stayed buried. The tremors they mentioned were just the start. After that, the creatures appeared, and the colony fell apart. Mara knew the survivors must have sent the SOS before disappearing or worse. As dawn approached, the fleet sent in drones to map the underground tunnels, hoping to find a way to the source of the ancient power pulsing beneath the planet. But the drones vanished without a trace, cut off by an energy field unlike anything the Deathworlders had seen before. This only deepened the mystery and increased the sense of danger. Then, the true nature of the enemy revealed itself. A group of scouts returning from a perimeter check was ambushed by a larger force of the alien creatures. Unlike before, These attackers were armored with natural plating that shimmered in the dim light, and their weapons seemed biological organic extensions of their bodies that fired poisonous projectiles. The Deathworlders fought hard, but were pushed back, losing valuable ground. Mara realized that the aliens had adapted quickly, learning from each encounter and improving their tactics. This wasn't a random attack. It was a war to protect something sacred. After the skirmish, the captured alien scout revealed something unexpected. Through a translator device, it communicated a message. Humans were invaders who had disturbed the balance of the planet. The ancient power beneath was a guardian, a force that must never be awakened or controlled. The colony's digging had broken a seal, and now the planet's defenders fought to contain the threat before it spread beyond their world. Mara understood then that the SOS was both a cry for help and a warning. The survivors wanted to save themselves but feared the greater danger lurking below. The Deathworlders faced a choice: withdraw and leave the secret buried, or press on and risk unleashing a disaster that could threaten the entire galaxy. The captain's resolve hardened. Humanity would not run from the unknown. They would fight, adapt, and survive. But to do so, they needed to learn more about this enemy, the ancient power, and how to control or destroy it before it consumed them all. With new urgency, Mara ordered a deeper push into the colony's ruins, following clues from the alien scouts' warnings and the data recovered from the tunnels. The forest around them grew darker, the air heavier, as if warning them to turn back. But the Deathworlders pressed forward, their determination burning bright against the shadows. Every step brought them closer to the truth and closer to danger. The hidden enemy was no longer just creatures in the woods. They were protectors of a secret that could change everything. And the battle for the soul of the planet was only beginning. The Deathworlders moved cautiously deeper into the colony ruins, their weapons ready and senses alert. The forest around them felt heavier, the air thick with an almost electric tension that raised the hairs on their arms. Captain Mara Voss led the squad toward an ancient control station. The datapads had hinted at a place where the colonists had once tried to manage the planet's wild environment. It was supposed to be a key to survival, but something had clearly gone wrong. As they reached the rusted doors, Mara's tech specialist worked quickly to override the ancient locks. The moment the doors slid open, a wave of stale, cold air rushed out, carrying the faint scent of decay and something else, something metallic and sharp. Inside, the room was filled with old consoles and blinking lights, many still faintly glowing despite decades of neglect. Mara's team split up to scan for data, hoping to find answers. The screens flickered to life, showing maps of the planet's ecosystem and energy flow beneath the surface. The technology was far more advanced than expected. Colonists had been experimenting with controlling the deadly wildlife and the planet's strange energy source. Suddenly, a soft rumble shook the building, and the lights dimmed. Outside, the forest seemed to respond. The dangerous creatures began moving faster, their attacks more coordinated. The Deathworlders realized the planet itself was reacting to their presence, as if it were alive and angry. Mara's mind raced. The environmental controls could be the key to turning the tide. They might be able to use the planet's own power against the alien attackers. Working quickly, the team managed to activate some of the old systems. Automated turrets powered up, targeting hostile wildlife that had crept near the base. Barriers formed and traps sprung, all designed to protect the colony. The environment that had once been their greatest enemy was now a weapon in human hands. The aliens, however, were not easily deterred. They adapted quickly, altering their tactics to avoid the traps and focusing attacks on the control station. The battle intensified, pushing the Deathworlders to their limits. But the human spirit proved strong. Using their ingenuity and teamwork, they held the line, slowly reclaiming ground lost to the hostile forces. In the midst of the fight, Mara discovered something unexpected: a message left by the colony's leader, encoded deep within the control station's mainframe. It spoke of an ancient power beneath the planet's crust, a force that could either save or destroy everything.